Hello everyone and welcome to Group 1's demonstration and recap of our recent planning poker session. My name is Jason Catmull and I will be presenting the details of this session for our BYU Idaho Visitor Information website. The planning poker activity was an eye-opener and a great reflection tool for most of the group. It provided us great opportunities for us to review our current specifications and get a taste of how others in the group viewed the project according to the individual user stories. I personally was surprised at the variation in all the diverse thought processes that accompanied this session. We began our planning poker by listing our backlog of functional stories. Each of our products were designed to be a separate web page which would eventually be combined into a comprehensive BYU Idaho visitor site. It was easy to separate the tasks for our team because each of the pages of the site had one function or one purpose, as I'll detail here. Some of these stories changed in purpose and scope as a result of our planning poker session, and one was eventually omitted entirely. We started with a list of 12 website components or web pages. As you can see here, they consist of common searches and answers to questions Rexburg visitors may have. The only one not included here is our landing page, which still needs further discussion before being added to the end of the project. Before our planning poker meeting, the group had listed the requirements of our project simply at face value. We only had some comprehension of the scope and capacity of each individual user story. Because of the different backgrounds, the fields of study, and the demographics of the individuals on the team, we had a lot of fun participating. As a disclaimer, these photos are only slightly representative of the emotions felt by the team, and no participants were actually harmed in the process. We were somewhat blown away by the variation of cards and story points assigned in the first few attempts. Some of this could be attributed to the inexperience with the game or simply our divergent understandings of what the products entailed or the efforts needed to accomplish them. As the process continued, though, and members had a better appreciation of what was required, we were able to become very proficient at the game, sometimes coming to a consensus on the very first try. We used a Fibonacci sequence of cards to reflect some of the inherent uncertainty in estimating some of the larger items in our project. Although this is a technical project requiring some development background, for the purposes of this project, we were trying to leave out some of the more programming details so that all the members of the group can participate and determine complexity without diving into some of the complications associated with developing a website. The backlog of user stories were created as a group without individual ownership, so as a result, we assigned the product owner and tried clarifying each story as a group before actually voting. Probably not the most ideal way, but it worked for us this time. The very first user story had a wide range of opinions due to the different ways you could implement maps for our visitor site. Some of us considered the possibility of simply creating a Google Maps link and gave this one of the lowest scores possible. Other members considered the fact that there will be multiple maps and even layers to locate places on and off campus. In addition, the map may include simple black and white wireframes, as you can see here in this example, with more decorated icons that direct the user's attention. The low and high outliers could then explain the reasoning, and we could continue to vote until we reached a consensus. I'm not going to go over every user story, but I thought I'd share just one more that will undoubtedly end up being one of our most effort-intensive portions of the project, and that is the recreation and tourist info page. At first glance, I personally gave this a very low score, but was surprised later to find out how complicated this can become. The research alone for this task is fairly substantial, requiring details included from many of the other user stories. Visiting popular sites in and around Rexburg will benefit from travel, weather, and a multitude of other pertinent information. The user story itself could be separated further into many refined web pages that dive into tourist activities in much greater detail than simply saying there are some sand dunes nearby and you may want to check them out. So instead, let's say, what can you do at the sand dunes, how to get there, what type of vehicle you may want to take, when is the best time of year and best time of day to visit, some other pros and cons, etc., etc. And so in the end, we contributed the most story points to this activity. So in review of our first sprint, we ended up changing some of the scope of the project, including the addition and deletion of portions of our product backlog. Weather received 0 story points because we would simply be creating a link to a reputable site such as weather.com. The religion story was removed altogether because it is difficult to compete with the simplicity and usability of LDS tools. And many of the functional stories with low scores were justified because they would contain context that is as simple as collecting basic textual information and posting it to the page. We tried to consider some of the challenges associated with actually programming the architectural and functional aspects of the project, but this was more of an afterthought so that every member of our fictional development team, well, they're real people, but we're fictionally all developers. But in this way, we could all contribute in a meaningful way. Overall, we awarded the entire project a sum of 231 points for 12 stories in total. The planning poker activity provided us with some valuable insight. We originally felt that the project could be completed in a short time frame, but we did account for variability by stretching the timeline from 1 to 2 months originally, so this wasn't too much of a concern. So even with the changes made, we feel we have the experience and time necessary to complete a robust project deliverable. Our only concern is that we're not leaving as much breathing room for risks such as member dropouts, etc. We do appreciate your time, though, and that you've taken to review our project, and look forward to responding to any comments or questions you may have. Thank you.